I was probably 15 the first time I ever set foot in the gym, but despite my young age, I was crystal clear about what my goals were. Gain muscle, get lean, and stay that way. And here I am a mere 13 years later, finally confident enough to say, I've just about achieved that goal. But I know what some of you are thinking. Come on Andrew, it doesn't take 13 years of hard work and consistent training just to look like this guy. I've seen those reels on Instagram, I know how they end. It's just that like most people, I've gone through my training making all the mistakes and basically learning through trial and error. So I like to think that this is the end result of 13 years of more up and down training, which is probably a lot more relatable to some of you guys. But now, despite being the busiest I've ever been in my life, between my job, running this channel, trying to fit in a social life and amongst it all, this is my best ever physique and I'm managing to stay lean all year round. And honestly, it's never felt easier. As I've gotten older and puberty now thankfully feels like some distant fever dream, my focus has shifted away from those original goals I had of trying to look like an aesthetic icon. I'm now far more interested in what my teenage self would describe as the boring side of training, focusing more on how I can improve my performance, my health and my longevity, and funnily enough caring slightly less about how shredded I am. 15-year-old me would think I'm a real loser. So now when I talk about being lean, I'm not talking bodybuilder lean, like 4 months of hard dieting, water restriction, feel like shit lean. I'm talking about feel good, look good, eat good lean, 365 days a year, which for most guys is going to be somewhere between 10 and 14% body fat, or between 16 and 22% for women, very roughly. And this is where I fall. I'm the male in this example, by the way. So as someone that trains both running and lifting, I found this to be the sweet spot for my performance. If I was much heavier than I am now, it would start to seriously affect my pace, because I'm already way on the heavier end of the spectrum at 86 kilograms, being taller and more muscular than the average runner. And being much leaner than I am now, I'd probably also be sacrificing my performance in the gym, and in the kitchen too. I like my food. And I don't mean to sound like your doctor, but I am a doctor, so I feel obliged to mention those health benefits, because maintaining a low normal body fat percentage has massive implications for reducing your risk of developing chronic disease in the future, and also your ability to stay functionally fit well into older age. But I do think my level of leanness is pretty attainable for most people, so let's talk about how I do it. I think I've made my point about being a doctor. First off, exercise is definitely part of staying lean, but it probably has an overstated effect. There's increasing evidence that shows that once you've established a regular, moderate pattern of exercise, you don't end up burning a whole lot more calories than if you just didn't exercise altogether. That stung quite a bit when I learned about it. Cardio obviously has loads of other benefits, so don't neglect it, but what I'm saying is that you shouldn't expect to be able to out-exercise a bad diet. What will help your body composition is to build some muscle, because this lean tissue requires energy to sustain, so you literally burn more calories just by existing. Also, adding some muscle mass to your frame just makes you look leaner, even for the same body fat percentage, because you have bigger muscle bellies hiding under that fat. Weightlifting really is a cheat code. For reference, I lift weights 2 to 3 times a week for anywhere between 60 and 90 minutes each time, and my focus is on building progressive overload over time with each of my lifts, which will build muscle if I'm in a calorie surplus, but will build strength even if I'm not. I normally train with a push and pull split, or full body, which means that I can hit all my key movements at least twice a week, even only doing 3 gym sessions. Today's a pull session if you didn't realise. Alongside my gym work, I usually run around 50 kilometers a week, but back in these photos, I was running around 10 to 20 kilometers a week. But you can see that I have pretty much identical body fat percentage. I was obviously just less muscular back then, but my diet this whole time has stayed pretty much the same. So as you can see, all that extra cardio wouldn't be necessary if I wasn't worried about performance and just wanted to stay lean. But what it has meant is that now more often than not, I beat that fast guy at my local park run, who granted pushes his toddler around in a pram, but that's something. So it follows on that staying lean is overwhelmingly dependent on the foods you're eating. So these are some of the biggest changes that I've made to help me keep a low body fat percentage year round. I basically eat 4 solid meals every day: breakfast, lunch, an afternoon meal and dinner. And I think eating larger meals more regularly is a more assured way of getting the quality nutrition in that I need to fuel and recover. And crucially, the goal with these meals is to try and stick predominantly to whole foods. And I'll explain why in a minute. Carrying in all that shopping after deadlifts is not easy, and this next bit might be a little controversial, so hear me out. I personally think that counting calories is a waste of time for most people, and I instead prefer to do what some people call intuitive eating. This is one of those totally unnecessary fitness buzzwords, which basically means not counting calories, which is what 99.9% of all humans that have ever lived do. But the whole calories in and calories out thing, although strictly true in regards to the law of thermodynamics, is not practical for the average person in the long term, and only deals with the symptom of overeating, not the cause. I obviously think it's helpful to have a rudimentary understanding of what a calorie is, and which foods are more energy dense than others. But do I really want to spend the rest of my life logging every morsel of food that I eat on MyFitnessPal? Absolutely not. Remember, we're aiming for that 10 to 14% sweet spot, not trying to get stage ready for the Arnold Classic. The thing to keep in mind, and where a lot of people can trip up with the whole intuitive eating, is that if you're wanting to make big changes in your body composition, patience is the name of the game. Don't expect a rapid drop in your body fat or a huge anabolic response where you build crazy amounts of muscle just because you ate a quinoa salad. The mindset that helped me is that I know I'm adopting healthy habits I can stick to for the rest of my life, that will slowly shift that dial on my body composition to get me leaner, more muscular, and also healthier, but crucially to stay that way too. And in all seriousness, if you're someone that wants to swing between the extremes of body weight with aggressive bulks and cuts, this probably isn't for you. But my best tip when it comes to diet, if you're wanting to reach a realistic and sustainable body fat, is to focus less on exactly how many calories you're eating, but instead focus on the foods you're actually eating, which should predominantly be those whole foods I was talking about. These are foods that have had zero or minimal processing at the time you bought them. Think Greek yogurt instead of reduced fat flavoured yogurt, or quinoa and lentils rather than protein boosted bread. I'm going to do a video in future where I go through some of my favourite Gainsy meals, but here's an example of some of the ingredients that I pick up from the supermarket most weeks. So lots of fresh fruit and vegetables, lots of tinned goods, a range of different grains, seeds and nuts, and then you've got a fairly modest amount of animal products, stuff like dairy, eggs, maybe some fish or some chicken. And by the way, I normally shop at Lidl, which is probably the cheapest way to eat like this, at least if you're living in Europe. Do they have Lidl outside of Europe? I don't know. One of the big reasons that whole foods are better for you is because they're really dense in micronutrients, presented to your body in a format that you can easily digest. And also, they're just really hard to overeat. Like, despite not being a vegetarian, I eat loads of plant-based sources of protein. Things like tofu, lentils, beans, and quinoa, because they all contain complex compounds, which takes your body a long time to digest, as well as lots of fibre and water, so they physically fill up your stomach and give you that feeling of being sated. If you're smashing a Huel meal replacement shake, yeah, it might contain all the same molecules as a balanced meal, but in a blended and a natural format that's rapidly digested and leaves you feeling hungry again an hour later. And think about how many kernels of corn you could realistically eat before you felt full, versus how many packets of Doritos you could eat for the same feeling. One is a natural ingredient with all the fibre and water that nature intended, and the other is dried out, ultra processed and mixed with loads of saturated fat and additives to make you want more. One of the keys to forming sustainable habits in any part of your life is simplicity, but I often get really specific questions about things like meal timing, what my macro breakdowns are, whether or not I take BCAAs, and also, increasingly to my own amazement, what gear am I on? But I promise you I am not that sophisticated, and neither do you need to be to see results. Worrying too much about the detail can often just confuse the process, and the vast majority of people would benefit from just focusing on the big picture stuff and getting that right. It's one of the many instances where the law of diminishing returns is very relevant. Simply put, on days when I train more, I'm naturally hungrier, so I eat larger portions or add an extra snack here and there versus those days when I don't train. And as I've already said, I split my 4 meals evenly throughout the day and don't worry too much about the exact mix of macros I'm consuming, apart from protein, which I have a minimum daily target of about 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. Other than that, I just try and get a decent mix of carbs and healthy and saturated fats with each meal. I take a handful of supplements such as protein powder, creatine and electrolytes when I need them, and eating this way I do get hungry before my next meal, but I never feel absolutely starving or have those real deep cravings for junk food. Staying lean year round also requires you to navigate things like Christmas and holidays and birthdays, where bad food and bad decisions are dangled in front of you. But that's fine, because you don't need to be some clean eating saint. I'm consciously more relaxed about the foods that I eat on weekends or holidays, and most Fridays I'll have something like a beer and a pizza. I don't know why I'm saying most Fridays. Every single Friday I'll have a pizza. It's literally a thing that me and Lil do. But my mantra is that if I can eat whole foods, train hard and recover properly at least 80% of the time, then that's going to keep me consistent and getting solid, realistic results year after year. Giving myself permission to not be perfect means that I don't want to throw away all my hard work after every little indulgence. Some people say that perfect is the enemy of good, and I think there's a lot of truth in that. When I first started shifting towards an intentionally more whole food diet back in 2022-23, I was a healthy 79 kilograms, but definitely a lot less lean and muscular than I am now. To track my progress, I weighed myself on the scales every week or two to begin with, and found that very easily I was able to maintain my body weight just by eating predominantly whole foods until I felt full. Despite my body weight not really shifting, I was clearly looking leaner, and the only way that you can do that is by shifting the dial on your body composition. I'd clearly lost some fat and gained some muscle. It wasn't a dramatic transformation, but it was definitely noticeable to me. And after about a year of this, I decided I wanted to bulk up a bit and wanted to add some muscle and some strength. So I started increasing my portion sizes slightly and adding in extra snacks throughout the day here and there, whilst also training consistently in the gym and with my running. And over about another year, I was able to add 6 or 7 kilograms of what I think was predominantly muscle and bulk up from that original 79 kilograms to where I am today, around 86 kilograms. Again, not an enormous transformation, but an honest and realistic one that I'm proud of. But patience is the name of the game here. This process will require some trial and error to get used to, and big changes in body composition are going to happen over months and years, not over days and weeks. And don't forget about that peripheral stuff, focusing on getting good quality sleep, limiting your alcohol intake, and trying as much as possible around no doubt busy lives to minimise your stress. It's that holistic approach you want to aim for, which not only keeps you lean, but also reduces your whole body inflammation, keeping you happy and healthy way into the future. But that's it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to subscribe down below for more realistic advice on how to get fitter, stronger and healthier. But otherwise, I'll see you again next time.